So, a little bit of a note as well. Down the bottom, you'll be able to see that we've got a bit of a progress bar to show where we're up to. So, you can see what is to come and where we're up to as well. So keep an eye on that. And if you have any questions, please ask. So to start with, we're going to have a look a little bit about the syllabus. So this is Unit 1, Perspectives and Texts, which you may have just finished or you may be about to finish depending on where you're at in Year 11. So exploring individual or collective experiences and perspectives through engaging with a variety of texts, examining perspectives and representations with identities and groups, and exploring how meaning is shaped through relationships between language, text, purpose, context, and audience. So all those things that go into a text. Each objective must be assessed once. So you'll see as well, we've got some highlighted bits here, and they are recurring bits that are really important for English throughout both Year 11 and Year 12. And we will go into a little bit more detail about those because those are some things that students struggle with understanding and with actually implementing in assignments and exams. So patterns and conventions of genres, establishing and maintaining the role of the writer or the speaker, creating and analyzing perspectives and representations of content, concepts, identities, times, and places, making use of the ways cultural assumptions, attitudes, values, and beliefs underpin texts and invite audiences to take up positions and analyze the ways that these are created as well. So that is something that a lot of people struggle with, and I'll get to that in a moment. A few more things as well. Aesthetic features and stylistic devices. We'll get to that in a second as well. Selecting and synthesizing subject matter. So synthesizing means putting it in a logical order. Using cohesive devices, language choices, and of course grammar and language structures. So for more information and greater detail, I recommend that you check out the syllabus. That's all available online, not only for English, but for every subject that you could be doing at school. So the syllabus has a whole range of different things that are going to be helpful for you. I definitely didn't make use of it as much as I wish I should have in senior high school. So you can find out information in terms of the rubric and how you're marked. So the marking criteria for each piece of assessment. You can see the different requirements in terms of the word count, the amount of time you would be given for an assignment or an exam, the unit objectives, so helping you understand the actual aims of what you're learning and what that will lead to. You can also see a glossary, which is really helpful, and I'll get to elaborating on that when I speak about those things that I mentioned before, cultural assumptions and those things that people struggle with. So there are also example pieces of assessment on the QCEE website. So you can see how not only good examples of high-level tasks that have been completed, but also how they actually achieved what they did. So the examples are annotated, showing the marking criteria and how it's meeting the marking criteria with color coding and everything to help you out. And you can also see examples of just task sheets of what maybe to come, so you can find out maybe what to expect in year 12 and for the rest of year 11, and that will help you be really prepared for that. And then as well, you can see the glossary. So that is something that I'll talk about now. So the glossary has a whole bunch of definitions of things that are mentioned throughout the syllabus. So if you're struggling to understand some things that might be in the marking rubric, then I definitely suggest that you check out the glossary to see if they define them, those words. So one of those things is cultural assumptions. Lots of students don't really understand what that refers to, and even more so, they don't understand how to actually achieve this in a text that they're writing. So there's two different requirements, as we read just before in the syllabus outline. One of them is to create your own cultural assumptions. So this might be the case in a creative writing piece, for example, where you're not analyzing something necessarily, but you're creating something of your own. So cultural assumptions are ideas, beliefs, or attitudes about things like gender, religion, ethnicity, youth, age, disability, sexuality, social class, and work. And those things are taken for granted as being part of the fabric of the social practices of a particular culture. So the cultural part of this is really important. It's all about where you are in terms of the setting, what time period it is, and what the culture is like. So you have the idea of creating your own in a short story, and you can also be analyzing ones as well. So that could be the case in an essay, for example, where you need to analyze how a particular text uses cultural assumptions. So if we were looking at a text like Macbeth or Hamlet from the Shakespeare kind of period in Elizabethan England, then the cultural assumptions, some examples could be their beliefs in terms of gender. So women had a certain role in the household and in marriages. It's not the same as it is now in terms of our movements for gender equality and things like that. So looking at what assumptions did they have about gender back then? An assumption was that men were more powerful, more capable, those sorts of things. That was also a belief and an attitude. They valued women in the household and women as sort of more compliant kind of wives and mothers, rather than sort of having their own careers and stuff like that. So thinking about the time period, all of the sort of background information about that time period, and then all those things in terms of their beliefs and attitudes and values regarding that list of things we can see there: gender, religion, etc. So you could be analyzing those, or you could be creating your own. So another example is To Kill a Mockingbird, which was based in 1930s Southern America. And if you looked at ethnicity for that one, you could see that they had a lot of different beliefs and values in terms of race back then. They didn't see different races as being equal like many of us do today, unfortunately. And so they had far different cultural assumptions about the way that people should be treated when they were of color and those sorts of things. So that's part of the fabric of the social practices of a particular culture. The way people were treated, the way they saw one another, is all about their beliefs and attitudes and assumptions about other people. And then, of course, if you looked at today's society, then you would see things a lot differently to the way that you would in those other two examples I just gave. So the time period that you're looking at is a really important consideration for this, whether it be in an analyzing situation or creating your own. So if you're going to create your own text, really consider what makes sense for the time period you're going for. And if you're analyzing, then everything you think about should be through that lens of what was normal then, what do they believe then. And then as well as the cultural assumptions, you've got values, so moral principles or standards often shared with others in a cultural group. Stylistic devices and cohesive devices, they're more examples of things that you can find the definition of in the syllabus glossary. So I've just got the definitions that they provide here, and you can go to the syllabus to find lots of other definitions that are similar. So by reading this, if you didn't understand what it meant by cohesive devices in the marking rubric, then you can really easily go to the glossary and see that an ellipsis, for example, is an example of a cohesive device. So an ellipsis is ... So if you're writing a short story and you have ... somewhere, then that is actually an example of a cohesive device. And then other examples are connectives, so words that connect out sentences, so they're not all really short sentences that don't sort of interrelate very clearly. So however and because and therefore and all those words that show the links between things. And then synonyms, of course, words that mean the same things as other words. So then, of course, you've got multimodal examples as well, if that's what you're doing in your assessment task. So seeing these things can make those things that we don't understand a lot clearer. So I definitely recommend using the syllabus to your advantage.